of shadows.
Hi my angels, it's Hailey Reese and I hope that you guys are having a fantastic day, night, morning, afternoon, whatever it is where you guys are. Today's video is a little bit different, and honestly it's very scary, but for different reasons other than that of paranormal. It is very scary because it is a very real situation and perhaps one of the stupidest decisions I have ever made in my whole entire life here on planet Earth. As I'm sure you guys can see from the title, today's video is going to be an Uber horror story, and I definitely never pictured myself being the type to make this video. I know that there are so many YouTubers who have filmed videos in the past of Uber horror stories, and I didn't ever want to seem like I was trying to jump on like a trend bandwagon or if I was trying to jump on a clickbaity title. What happened in this Uber experience is very real, to the point where anytime I think about how different this could have ended, I feel sick to my stomach. And so I feel as though I need to make this video in order to share my story, but also share with any of you who might find yourself in a similar situation, the mistake that I made, and just kind of spread a warning of situations like the one that I got myself into. So without further ado, I'm just going to dive right on into it because I have a lot that I want to say. This past weekend, I actually took a trip to Atlanta, Georgia, and it was my very first time ever being in Atlanta. I ended up bringing my mom along with me because though I was there for a work purpose, I wanted to make sure that I had somebody else with me for safety reasons, and I just love to travel with my mama. So my mom and I headed to Atlanta this past Saturday. Now, when we got into Atlanta, we initially went to go and rent a car, and when we got to the car rental place, they didn't have any available cars. First and foremost, we stood in the line for about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, only to find out that like these third-party sites that were selling these rental cars had overbooked, and so there was about 50 people in this lineup that didn't have any cars. They basically told us that because we'd booked a couple of days ago, we were at a higher ranking than those who had booked that day, so for us it would take between 2 to 4 hours to locate a rental car for us, but for people who had booked that day, it would take like 4 to 6 hours. So obviously that was pretty frustrating and a lot of people were really upset, but I looked at my mom and I was like, honestly, I don't want to wait here for 2 to 4 hours. I'd rather go, take an Uber, get to the hotel, get settled, get some food in our stomachs, and just go about it. And then if we decide to go back and get the rental car later, we would just do that. So I pulled up my Uber app and I located an Uber, and we were waiting outside for this Uber. Now, it was at this time that a female and a male next to us striked up a conversation and said, well, what did they tell you guys? And we explained the 2 to 4 hour thing, or the 4 to 6 hours, and they were saying how they were really frustrated. And then the girl asked me how we would be getting to our hotel, and I told her that I'd called an Uber. She flat out says to me, you guys, and this is why what ends up happening later is so stupid, but she looks me in the eyes and she says, be very, very careful with Ubers out here. There's been some sort of thing where the system can get hacked and cars around come and pose as your Uber driver, and you get in and you get like human trafficked. And that obviously was pretty unsettling. So right away I had it in my head that I was going to be checking all of the license plates of the cars that were pulling up as our Ubers. Now, I don't know if Uber does this elsewhere, but it's never done it to me in LA or in Toronto, but Uber in Atlanta would pop up this like warning sign or this warning message saying, make sure that the picture matches your driver, make sure that the vehicle description matches your driver, and make sure that the license plate matches your driver. So I'd never seen that before, and that mixed with what the girl had said put kind of like this bad taste in my mouth as far as Uber goes, but I also appreciated the warning and just decided that I was going to be extra careful when getting into these Ubers. We get into our Uber, we get to our hotel, everything's great. We wound up that specific day just walking everywhere that we were going, and that was all great. And then the next day, we decided to go for lunch in this like cute little area. So we go to the lunch in the area and we Ubered there as well, and it was once again yet another positive experience. And all along, like I said, I had been checking the license plate on these Ubers to make sure that they lined up. Here's where things get spooky. So we're at this lunch and we finish up the lunch, and I realized that I wanted to go and buy a whole new memory card for the project that I was going to be shooting later that day because it was going to be so much footage. So We call an Uber and we go just outside of like the downtown Atlanta that we were in to go to a Best Buy so that I could get a memory card. We get in our Uber, we go to Best Buy, everything's going great. We get into Best Buy, I buy my memory card, and I call another Uber. Right away, I see that it's a female driver, and interestingly enough, her picture, I believe, let me see, hold on. Let me see what her picture was like. Her picture, I want to see if I'm remembering it correctly. Yeah, so her picture had like one of those Snapchat photo filters on it. So I think it was like the gold one, like I don't know how to explain it, but it was like a Snapchat filtered picture. And so I kind of giggled at that she used that as her Uber profile picture, but it was a female and she was supposed to be arriving in a Ford car. So right away we're waiting in like the doors of Best Buy and I'm expecting this female in a Ford car to show up. But a few minutes before she pulls in, I receive a message from her that says, I'm in a white Mercedes truck pulling in now. I didn't really think much of the fact that she was coming in a different vehicle. Like I thought there might be an explanation for it and she had messaged me. So I was like, all right, this couldn't be too bad. And my mom and I are standing there and we see the white Mercedes truck pull into the Best Buy parking lot. As it's pulling up and as it parks, I notice that it's a male driver. And I'm like, maybe this isn't our Uber. So I walk up slowly and then I realize there's a passenger in the passenger seat, which is a female. And she rolls down the window and she goes, Hailey? And right away I think to go and look at the license plate, which was kind of stupid anyways, because if it's a different vehicle, it's a different license plate, but the license plate didn't add up. The front seat had her in the passenger seat, but a male in the driver's seat. And she's telling me, I messaged you, it's me, like, come on in. And I feel like this strange, awkward pressure, and she looks at me before I'm climbing in. The back door was opened, by the way, my mom had opened it. She looks at me and she says, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Canada. She goes, oh, that explains why you're so skeptical. Don't worry, it's all good. And so I uncomfortably climb into the vehicle and have her climb into the vehicle. Now, my mom didn't really know that this isn't normal. She never really takes Uber, ever. And she figured that I would tell her, like, we shouldn't be getting in this vehicle if there was an issue. But my stupid self in that moment, or I'd rather say my naive self, I'm not stupid, but I can be very naive to people. And I can crack under pressure because I have social anxiety. So I climbed into the back seat. And right away, it stunk like weed. Like as if somebody had just smoked up maybe like half an hour before. Like it wasn't so strong, but it was that lingering smell of weed. And my mom gets in, and so now I'm thinking, okay, it's a different vehicle. It's a male driver with her in the passenger seat, and now the car smells like weed. And the minute that my mom gets in, he locks the doors of the car. So now we're like locked inside this car. And that was when I recognized, oh my goodness, it's a tinted Mercedes car. Like the windows are tinted, and he's just locked it. And I'm the type of person that when I'm uncomfortable or scared or anything of those sorts, you can read it all over my face. And he looks at me in the rearview mirror and he says, don't worry, we're not gonna kidnap you, which I just found so weird. Like, why would he even think that? Like, I was just freaking out. And so he says, where are you going? And I'm like, it's in the system. Like, we're going to the Ritz-Carlton downtown. And he's like, oh, okay. And right away, I pull up my own maps because I wanted to see if he was taking the right way. I wanted to make sure that we weren't going somewhere we weren't supposed to go, because in which case I would call 911 immediately and try to save us. So the male starts talking, and he's like overly talking, like he's really trying to keep conversation, and it's very apparent that I'm not. My answers are very like not listening, and my mom's answers are very weird too, because she's trying to figure out why I'm acting so scared and so sketchy. And I'm actually going to insert all of the receipts of me messaging my mom saying, are we okay, and all the things that transpire with Uber after. Like, this is completely God's honest truth story. Like, God is my witness. Like, this is exactly what happened. And the female isn't really talking. She's sitting there sipping on this iced coffee that she has and not speaking, and he's trying to strike up a lot of conversation. That was when he says, so do you guys have to convert your money when you come here from Canada, or how does that work? And my mom's like, oh, no, we just have like US cards that will like transfer the money that we need too. And he goes, oh, who do you bank with that does that? Because he said that he was from Canada as well. He'd been to Windsor or something. And so he's like, where do you bank with that? And she's like, RBC. And he goes, where's an RBC here? And she goes, I don't know. And then I start to think, are we about to be robbed? Like, is he gonna go pull up to our bank and be like, go inside and get money like right now? Like, my brain and my mind is doing the most. Like, it's going a million miles a minute. I was so sick to my stomach. I was lightheaded. I thought I might pass out in the back seat. And let's say like, and he had like the maps up on his phone, like on the Uber thing. And so the maps are up, and the whole time I'm like, okay, we have to get off in 1 kilometer. Why is he not switching lanes? Like, my brain is just going crazy, and I'm so freaked out, and he just keeps trying to make so much conversation, but I'm not even paying attention. And like, the amount of conversation he was trying to make was like, he was just trying to keep our minds busy. Like, he was just trying to make it very like nonchalant. And I messaged my mom, and I'm like, are we gonna be okay, or something along those lines? And she's like, yes, we will be fine. And I'm looking at my maps, and she's looking at me, and I'm like, okay, we are going the right direction. Like, we are going the right way. And the female is just not talking this whole entire time, and she's supposed to be the driver for starters, which we'll get into that in a second. But finally, we get like to downtown, and I'm starting to feel better because I feel like, okay, worst case, like I'll get somebody's attention. Like, my brain is just like thinking the worst. And as we're getting like closer to exiting the highway, I should also say, she starts pointing, like saying like exit here, when he knew where to exit. Like, it's like he could see it on the maps, and she's still pointing now to tell him which way to go and telling him like turn here and go here. So then my brain's thinking, is she deciding to let us go? Like, is this her signal of like, okay, drop them off, here's where you turn, here's what you do? Because the whole first half of the ride, he was looking at the maps just fine, and he was getting where he needed to go just fine. But when we started approaching like the final like 8 minutes of our ride, she's pointing, telling him which way to go, but not saying anything at all. Thank goodness, and like, thank goodness, he pulls up into our hotel, and we get out, and everything's fine, and he says, have a great day, and we were safe and sound. But I still felt so sick over what had just transpired. I felt so sick over the fact that it was a different car, different license plate. She was in the passenger seat. Who the heck was driving the car? It smelled like weed. He locked the inside of the car. Like, he clicked it and it went click, and like the little like pop out of the lock was him. And I just felt so sick over it. I actually went ahead and tweeted about it, and I was like, do I report them? Because on one hand, they were really friendly, and they did get me from point A to point B safely, but on the other hand, I have no idea who's driving this car. I have no idea whose car this is. I have no idea what they're thinking. And all that kept going through my mind the whole entire time was what that girl had told me when I was just outside of the airport, which leads me into the point that I was so naive and just dumb in that moment to even consider getting in that car. In fact, if I was braver and didn't have so much social anxiety, I should have said, this isn't the car, who's driving, and what the heck is going on here? Because it was just so unprofessional and so inappropriate, regardless of if they had the purest of intentions. Who the heck was driving the car? And why was it a different vehicle, and why did it smell like weed like that? It's just so crazy to me that I would make the decision to not only put myself in that car, but to put my mother in that car too. And it's so crazy to me that I chose being uncomfortable and just climbing in over my life. Because while I'm very, very fortunate and very blessed and very lucky that I was dropped off at my location and that nothing bad happened, it's not always like that for everybody. And I should have never even gambled with my life for 1 second to even get inside of that Uber. And that's the biggest reason that I'm making this video, is that while I'm okay and everything's okay with me, please, 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 if you're in a similar situation, don't make the mistake that I did. This could have ended so much worse. It could have ended with me going missing, or worse, or way worse. And I don't even want to get into what could have happened, because it didn't, thank goodness. But please, please, please be so careful when using apps like Uber, or even taxi services, or Lyft, or whatever it is that you use to get from one place to another that's a driver you don't know. It's so important that you put your safety first. And there's a reason that Uber puts the make of the vehicle and the license plate and the picture. There's a reason for it. And if they get there and it's not what's been listed, then don't get in the car. So I ended up messaging Uber, and I basically filed a report saying that the vehicle wasn't what it was supposed to be. I'll put it up here, and that it was a different car and there was a different driver. And they ended up saying they took that very seriously, and they reimbursed me for the trip. But at the same time, I feel like it's just so crazy. It was just so scary and so inappropriate, and I'm just so thankful that it didn't end up worse than it was, because I can't even tell you guys what was going through my mind. And then a part of me wonders, like, was I acting so suspicious that they knew that I was off vibes, and so they just decided to just deliver me safely? Like, was I so obviously, like, onto them? Or was it just normal? Like, did she just ask her boyfriend to drive the car? I ended up Googling it, and you're not even allowed to have, like, another passenger in the car, let alone you in the passenger seat and some stranger driving the car. It's also a big hazard as far as insurance goes, too. If it's not the vehicle and it's not the driver, what happens if we were to get into an accident? I don't know, you guys. It's just like I'm breaking a sweat right now thinking about it. I'm so thankful that everything turned out okay, but it was really scary, and I just wanted to share my experience with you guys so that if you're ever in a similar situation, you don't make this stupid mistake that I did by getting into the vehicle, because even though everything's okay, I really regret what I did. Well, you guys, that is my Uber horror story. Please don't make the same mistake that I did. I know I keep saying that, but I just can't get out of my mind what could have happened. And it upsets me to think that I allowed myself to be in that position. So please learn from my stupidity, and that is it for today's video. If you guys are new to my channel, make sure you go ahead and click the subscribe button, and please give this video a big thumbs up. I love you guys so, so, so much. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness, and until next time, I love you guys.